Okay, good evening, everyone. My name is Anne LaFemina. Hopefully, in just a few minutes, you're going to be able to see my screen. We are just getting started here. So I'll give everybody a few minutes to come on in and join me for tonight's presentation of the Playbook to College Athletic Recruiting, Strategies for Students and Families. Welcome, everyone. Very excited to bring you this presentation. Okay, so as we get started and we have students and families coming on board, I want to introduce myself. My name is Anne LaFemina. Again, thank you for joining me for this session on college athletic recruiting. Tonight, we'll cover everything from eligibility requirements to building relationships with college coaches, helping you create a roadmap for success. For tonight's webinar, we are broadcasting live through Facebook and YouTube. We will also be recording this. So if you can only stay with me for a certain period of time, that is absolutely fine. If you've registered, you will be able to get the recording of this webinar. I do want to share that now that we're live and we are moving forward with the presentation, you are able to ask questions, but I'm not able to see them right now. So I will be moving ahead with our presentation, but I do want to encourage you to stay with me, post your questions, and I certainly will spend time at the end of tonight's presentation providing you with the opportunity to answer some of those questions. I'm also going to be sharing my email address, so you would be welcome to email me as a follow-up to anything that you weren't sure about or you had a question following this presentation. So for tonight, after the webinar, you will be getting some downloads and some materials that correlate with everything that I presented tonight. You will find that I will be talking and circling back to several athletic associations. The three most specific ones that I'll be talking about tonight are the NCAA, which is the National Collegiate Athletic Association, the NAIA, which is the National Association of Intercollegiate Athletics, and then the NJCAA, National Junior College Athletic Association. So here are the websites. You will be getting them. And for each one of these athletic associations, we will also be providing you with their brochures and handouts that go along and give you even further details of everything that I'm going to be talking about tonight. All right, so here, as I mentioned earlier, this is my email, ann@jraec.com. So you are welcome to email me as a follow-up if I do not get the opportunity to answer any of your questions this evening. And let's kind of begin about what more specifically I will be covering. So, right, if you are an athlete, you have this athletic ability, you are approaching high school, someone who is an athlete has probably done this, right, since they're, on the soccer field, playing tennis, doing something athletically since they were very, very young. But as you start to go into your high school career and start to consider your athleticism and wanting to partner that and the collegiate environment, this would be sort of the natural progression for you to be thinking about, how do I play sports in college? So tonight's overview will kind of help you. There's a lot of layers here, but I'm going to do my best to navigate this process with you and help you prepare for your future collegiate aspirations. So, as I said, this can be just like with everything, college admissions can be very complex, and trying to navigate what do I need to do? How do I get the attention of a coach? How do I find the right fit college for me? How do I ensure that what I want to study and then be able to play are all going to integrate? And just really making sure that both your educational goals and your athletic goals are consistent and working in tandem together. So we're going to talk about all the layers and things that you need to be conscientious of in navigating this process. Now, for the beginning of this webinar, I'm going to break this down into kind of 6 categories of which I'll be covering, but also highlights how you get started into the process, right? So here you are, you're an athlete, and you're entering into the funnel of athletic recruitment. So college coaches considers thousands of prospective athletes from all kinds of sources, from all kinds of ways to learn about athletes out there, from media sites, through third-party recruitments, through recommendations, emails, camps, high school visits. So there are lots of ways that colleges and coaches find athletes. But how can you help yourself in that process? And I think that's where we're going to really sort of focus on as we go through. Coaches identify recruits by meeting these basic requirements. And remember, they're representing the college that they come from, and so each college may have certain requirements or profiles that they are looking for when they're looking to find a recruit. And it could be both the complements of your academics and then other things that meet what they're looking for on their team at that time. Maybe a certain weight requirement, a height requirement, a position, who you are, your academic performance. So there's a lot of variables when a coach is looking to complete their team or to recruit for the next year for their team. Keep in mind that coaches send letters, they send questionnaires, they can send camp invites, and you want to make sure that you are capturing their attention as they're going through this, with all just even the first 3 that I mentioned. And then coaches will then conduct in-depth athletic and academic and character evaluations, reaching out to those coaches, as I said, seeking those recommendations. They may travel to see prospects compete or invite them to specialized camps, hoping and then ultimately extending offers. Coaches then making an offer to their top prospects, working down the list. And we're going to talk about that, what that means, working down the list, because when a coach makes an offer and if it doesn't work out, there's plenty of recruits ready to fill those shoes. And then ultimately signing athletes. So when you just think about those 6 main premises of the recruiting process from the coach perspective, I'm going to help you tonight really work on this through the athlete perspective, and the student parent, even the parents' involvement in this process. All right. So here's the thing. The first thing we really want to cover before we get into, I always say with the students that I work with, a little bit more of the fun aspects, right? Writing maybe resumes, drafting emails to coaches, creating film or athletic reel. There's definitely some things you need to be aware of in terms of athletic divisions and organizations that you want to potentially be affiliated with, particularly if you want to be recruited as a D1 or D2 athlete. So let's just kind of take a little bit of the big picture here in numbers, and and then we're going to funnel it down. So if you remember in the beginning of the presentation, I told you about 3 organizations that NAIA, these are all athletic associations, the NCAA, which contain Division I, II, and III, and the NJCAA. And I'm going to break that down for you. But when you think about just these divisions, just in numbers, I've showing here and sharing with you the number of schools that are affiliated with those divisions and or organizations in various levels. So anything that's NAIA is always going to be a 4-year university. NCAA will be the same, and NJCAA is going to be a junior or community college. So we'll get a little bit more into that weed, but I think it's interesting for you to see, obviously, that NCAA covers more sports, has a strong number of schools subscribe to it, number of students athletes significantly higher, and then of course scholarships, which part of having the athleticism and playing in college is also having that scholarship opportunity or using your athleticism to pay for your education or to have that be the pathway to your education. So we're definitely going to cover all of that as we go through, but I wanted to just show you and start off by the numbers. Now, here's where I'm going to sort of divide this down a little bit further. In becoming a recruited athlete, one of the first things that you really should be doing is aligning yourself with one of these athletic associations. And so again, hang in there because I'm going to take you through why you want to do that. But let's look again at the various and differences, the varying differences between each one of these divisions. And I think that may help you to further determine which one you want to align yourself with. So first and foremost, we could start off by looking at the NCAA. Now, again, if you remember, that had the 3 divisions in it. So that is the largest collegiate athletic association in North America. It does include those D1, D2, and D3 schools, and I will help you to distinguish what that is. Anytime you're registering within the NCAA and want to play for a D1 or D2 school, that requires a certification account to access eligibility. And there is definitely a series of core courses, high school requirements, and a designated GPA that you must have in the calculation of those core classes. So that's going to be one of your most significant ones. The NAIA is a little bit of a less rigorous eligibility requirement than the NCAA. Prospective recruits must be high school graduates in good standing. You have to have at least 2 of the following: a minimum GPA or graduate in the top 50% of your class. And there's a little bit more flexibility if you're attending a college and playing as an athlete in an NAIA school. And then finally, on the junior college or community college level, this is the great opportunity for someone who doesn't want to take a gap year or stop in playing. But they are great starting points to move into the NCAA or NAIA as a transfer student. And as a member of the NJCAA, you are allowed to participate in 2 seasons of intercollegiate competition in any sport at any NJCAA college. All right, now let's start to continue to further break this down. So NCAA Division I call it the pinnacle of college sports. Elite competition. So these are the highest level of collegiate athletics. Athletes compete against top talent nationwide. The most, in terms of time commitment, right? The most significant time commitment of all of the opportunities, easily you're going to be putting aside 4 hours daily to your sport. You're going to be tasked with balancing academics and athletics, which can be very challenging. And but the bright side of that too is that D1 schools typically offer the most athletic scholarships. Full ride opportunities can be available for many of the sports in a D1. And remember, this is NCAA. Now, if it's a Division II within NCAA, smaller schools can be fewer scholarships, but it gives you a little bit more of that balance between sports and academics. You still have high quality competition, but with a little bit more flexibility. And then Division III, that prioritizes the academics over the athletics. So no athletic scholarships, but you can still get scholarships. And I'll talk a little bit about that. But it does provide the opportunity for athletes to compete and play at a collegiate level, but focusing on their studies can be a lot more doable. And I think Division II and Division III typically allow for a little bit more of a well-rounded college experience. You're still going to be spending a significant amount of time nurturing your sport and doing all the things that are required for athletes within any sport, but it does give you a little bit more flexibility to participate in clubs, even study abroad if it's off season, or social activities. And then the NAIA is really set up because it's very similar. You would think about it a lot more in line of that with the NCAA Division III. So what I just shared about sort of having that more flexibility in Division III, that would be an NAIA college. You can have absolute opportunities for scholarships. You can compete in various sports, but there's a nice balance of that academic and athletics. And I'm not saying that it's not there for the NCAA Division I, but remember, that's going to be your most significant and arduous, strongest level. And again, if with that NJ, sorry, I keep saying that, the NJCAA, the Junior College Athletic Association, those are the 2-year college programs. Again, that's a nice way to start, or you may want to affiliate yourself with that. If you're getting stronger, if you need to improve your academics to have the opportunity to transfer into either an NAIA or an NCAA. So just kind of reviewing in a simplistic manner before I go on, I talked about the NCAA, the NAIA, and the Junior College Athletic Association, the NJCAA, and a little bit more of those differences. Again, NCAA has 3 divisions within it. The National Association of Intercollegiate Athletics just has the 1 division, that is it. And that Junior College Athletic Division is really focused on your 2-year community college athletic programs. It can be divided into 1, 2, and 3, providing the opportunity for students after 2 years to transfer and compete in the NCAA or NAIA divisions. Okay, let's talk a little bit more about what it takes to join or to become certified within these eligibility or athletic associations, because that's going to be really significant in getting yourself, in line for these. Okay, so the NCAA has an academic eligibility portion to it, which follows the approval of core courses. So core courses mean English, math, physical science, natural science, social science, foreign language, religion, philosophy, or comparative religion. You have to be at or above your high school's regular academic level. The high school has to be an accredited high school. Your courses have to be taught by a qualified instructor. And each high school does have its own list of NCAA approved core courses that they must submit, unique and specific, in the portal for your high school within that NCAA. So it's about evaluating your core courses to what your high school has. So, okay. So let's kind of move through on that. So how do you convert an NCAA GPA? Because you have to land with a 2.3 or above for Division I. So regardless of what your high school is, they do not do pluses or minuses, and they do not do numerical grades, but you will need to convert all of your core classes and the grades that you've earned into letter grades and assign them a point for each letter grade. And this is, again, only for those core classes. You're going to add all the points for 16 core classes, and I'm going to show you what those core classes are. Once you've added all the points for the 16 core classes, you're going to divide the total points by 16 for a GPA to have landed at either a 2.3 for the eligibility of a D1 or a 2.2 for the eligibility of a D2. So that is something that you need to be very much mindful of if you're going to align yourself with the NCAA athletic organization. Now, when I talked about the 16 NCAA approved core courses in 8 semesters, this is what we're looking at. And this I took directly from the Eligibility Center. And this you will find in the brochure and the downloads, of which will be coming to you after the webinar. So it's about having 4 years of English, 3 years of math, 2 years of science. One has to be of a lab, and either an extra English or an extra math or science for 1 year, 2 years of a social science, and then an additional, any area listed on the left, or world language, comparative religion, or philosophy. So this is going to be the totality of the end of your senior year. Now, this is going to be the totality of the end of your senior year for Division II. A little bit different. 3 years of the English, 2 years of math, 2 years of social science, 3 years of extra English, math, or science, social science, 2 years, and then again, that any additional requirement. So your high school, you should be working very closely with your high school to make sure, and to let your counselor know, or let your athletic department, whoever is working with the Eligibility Center at your high school, that you will be joining or putting in for certification and getting yourself aligned with the Eligibility Center, so that your counselor and you can be 100% sure that all of your coursework and grades earned have you on track. Also, there is a Division I and Division II worksheet that you can work with. And we do have that as part of the follow-up materials, so that you can reference that as you go through and try to make sure that you have matched what you need to do there. Now, if we were just to look at a 4-year course plan, here it is. You have your example schedule here, and this would be kind of how I would map out for a student athlete 4 plus 4 equals 16. And you're able to just sort of look at it's very simple in your course selection. So keep this in the back of your mind, especially right as you're going through your course planning. That's going to be coming up in the second semester, right, of high school is when you submit your courses or register for your classes for the next year. All right, now when you create your profile within the NCAA Eligibility Center, there are 3 options of which you can elect to do. The first is the free profile. Now, I would say that if you're thinking about Division III, or if you're a 9th grader and you're just getting started, this might be the right one for you to select. You just want to get out there, you want to get an email, you want to get your ID, and you just want to sort of get started, make sure that you have this moving forward. I would recommend starting with that. The second one is really something that most high school students don't elect to. That's the amateurism only certification. Typically, that's for international students or for students who are just starting as a first year or transfer, or even still just that D3 student who wants to consider that. And there is a fee for that. That's $70. And I'm not sure if there is an international different fee for that. I'd have to go back and check, but there definitely is for the third option. So the third option is the academic and amateurism certification account. And I would say that if you're very serious about athletic recruitment, this is the one that you should be filling out and elect to do. This is going to be your D1 or D2. This will allow for an official visit, an official college visit. This will allow you to sign an official national letter of intent, which we will talk about all of those terms. But this one does come with a fee. It's $100 for in-state or students in the U.S. and $160 for anyone international. So that's something to keep in mind. Additionally, if you want to go ahead and create your NAIA account and you're thinking that the NCAA is not the route that you want to go to, the eligibility is different for that. You do need to have that 2.3, but there's a couple of different ways you can get that, and it's not focused on those core classes. So there's a combination of having either a 2.0 with other test scores, having 2 of the 3 of those requirements for automatic eligibility, or being at the top 50% of your class in rank if your high school ranks. Then that would be, again, at the totality of graduation. But if you're looking for any early eligibility determination in your senior year, you'd have to have the completed requirements on the right side of a 3.3 plus GPA or a 3.0 plus GPA with a qualifying test score. And then that changes into the senior year, again, with a 2.8 GPA of no test score and a 2.5 with a test score. Now, something that I didn't mention before I start going into scholarships is that you are not required to submit test scores to the NCAA, where they will be looking at those core classes. Years ago in 2023, they announced that they were not looking for students to submit test scores into the eligibility center. However, you still want to test. You still want to have strong test scores, because remember, you also have to get into the college that you want to play at. And so even though the NCAA does not require tests, as part of the eligibility process. You still want to be testing and you still want to be fully prepared. We have a lot of colleges that have gone back to test inclusive, meaning or test mandate, that they want you to have your test submitted. And for all, if you're in the state of Florida, where we're coming from, all of your Florida state, 12 state universities do require test scores. So definitely, even though you don't see that as a request, you should continue that on the academic and the collegiate admissions portion of all of this. Now, can you get scholarships, and what type of scholarships are available per division? If you are in an NCAA Division I, you can get a full or partial scholarship. Sometimes per sports, they are divided. If it's an NCAA, it can be primarily partial, but they can be combined with academic and need-based aid. And NCAA Division III, where you see no athletic scholarships, yes, that is true, but you can certainly gain scholarships on your merit, on your academic merit, or other, but there's no direct athletic scholarships. Okay, and the nice thing about being with an NAIA school is that you can also earn full or partial scholarships, and athletic scholarships can be offered and stacked with academic scholarships and need-based scholarships. And then same thing with the junior colleges. Not all offer scholarships, but they can offer you a scholarship. And this, again, as you know, I keep saying the junior college is such a great opportunity to start as a stepping stone for becoming a full-time athlete at one of the NCAA or NAIA colleges. Okay, so this takes me to the part that once we get through determining which athletic association we want to align with and we want to identify with, this now becomes really the part where you as the athlete and you as the parent can take that proactive approach. Now you're affiliated with an association, you have an ID number, but that alone is not enough to have you stand out and get recruited in this process. So I can't, impart this message enough to say that the single most important thing that you can do is be your own advocate and take that initiative to reach out to coaches, to promote yourself, and be that independent person in your communication and advocating for your skills. A couple of things that we're going to sort of get into get in depth on how to do would be things that are so important would be to prepare a highlight reel or athletic reel or something showing a video showcasing your best plays, your skill set, something that's really going to capture the attention of the coaches. And I can't tell you enough how important it is to really try to get yourself out there. Attending lots of colleges have winter showcases, summer showcases, spring showcases, even just for their own college, or sometimes it's a community event, meaning a community of colleges that come. Head coaches from 5 or 6 schools are all on the campus of one school, so scouting and watching and looking, and you can get some skill development from these showcases or from these tournaments or from ID camps. And then they will talk to you about the recruiting process, and it's a great way to make a connection with a coach. And then really, even if you start all of this in 9th grade, which you should, you always want to be updating. So every year you want to update your contact, your video highlight, your resume, adding, the highlights or the superior clips from each year over time. And you can continue to send those and reach out to coaches with all of this. So, when a coach is looking for you or looking at you, what are the kinds of things that they're looking for? Now, remember, I did share earlier that there might be a certain criteria, right? So, I work with athletes all the time navigating the college process. And athletes share letters that they've gotten from coaches where they're very honest, and they'll say, I'm looking to take 5 athletes from the class of 2026. I need, X, Y, and Z. I'm looking for this, and your profile has caught my attention. So sometimes it is about a specific niche in which they are looking to fill for a specific year. But they want to look at your ability, how you're keeping up with the current players, how they feel that you are going to be the right match for their team and for their college. And they want to see, how well are you at pushing through? If there's a mistake or you have a bad game, or if there's been mental blocks, how is your resilience in this process? Right now, I think it's really important to sort of pause and as I move on to number 3, because academic performance. So oftentimes a coach will look at you and they'll be very excited, and the next thing that they're going to want to ask you is to see how you're doing in school. What are the courses that you're taking? What does your academics look like? Because remember, even though you're being recruited by the coach, you still have to apply and get through admissions. And so a coach knows what admissions is looking for in a student. And so it's very important that you keep up with your academics and your work ethics so they feel confident in letting admissions know that this is someone that I'm interested in, and that your profile of academics will pass through the admissions. So that's a very big part of all of this. And then, of course, just your character, your coachability. Who are you? It's when athletes that I work with go and meet with coaches, it's all about how are you communicating with that coach? How is the coach communicating with you? And how is that rapport going? And what are they seeing in you? And what are you seeing in them? So I think these are all really sort of underlying factors that I think you really want to be very much aware of as you go through this process. All right. So, how do you go about contacting a coach at a college? This is one of the first and biggest questions that I always get. Well, there are several ways. And I think the first thing we're going to really sort of focus in on is the email. So, a lot of juniors and seniors that I work with write letters to coaches, and they write a lot and often. And so, what are the things that we're crafting and drafting in those emails to coaches? And what is it they want to see when we're creating these? So, things that they want to see is a little bit of who you are, where you're from, and how you can contribute to their program. So it is kind of, nice for them to have a sense of just a little of your profile right off the bat. Obviously, you want to include your name, your graduation year. That's always very important. Obviously, the sport or position, where you're located. And then if you have any of those standout details, things that will also give them some comfort, a GPA, test scores that are strong, other stats that you have, and then that video highlight. And sometimes we even include a resume. One of, I think, the biggest challenges and things that we really focus on after we start creating that email to the coach is how do we get their attention to read it? Because you can imagine they are overwhelmed with emails. So we really try to work on a subject line that's really going to grab their attention, and so make them want to read your email over somebody else's. So we might just put in your grad year, your position, maybe even strong ACT, a video attached. So giving something like that as a nod, or letting them know you're coming on the campus visit, your name, your grad year, and what you do. And even sort of more specifically, we've done things like putting in, state champion, some kind of accolade that they had, so school record, state record, tournament record. So anything that you can add to a subject line is going to be really impactful for all of this. Okay. Now, from there, other things that you're going to want to make sure that you include, and it could be about a height or a weight, depending upon the sport that you're doing. Okay, right? Weight training, weightlifting, that would be significant. Any kind of measurable stats that can be in the body of the email. Again, any of those awards and achievements in high school and club teams. And certainly that video highlight or resume. And even if you are aligned with one of those NCAA or NAIA, you should always include your ID number. Okay, so definitely other kinds of parts that are going to really help you in having a great letter to a coach is going to be things like, dear coach, but not coach, dear Coach La Femina. So making sure that it's personal. If you just have coach, it's going to not look like you're actually doing any kind of research on the college or the coach itself. If you have additional information, so for example, you know that you're going to be at an ID camp or a winter camp or a summer camp or showcase tournament where you know the coach is going to be there, give them the exact schedule or time, date, where you're going to be and where they can see you play. And additional information, which can also be great, is to add references, maybe including a contact information for your high school coach or your club coach is always a great idea. So all of these pieces, starting from the subject line and everything that I've shared, are all things that should make up the email or letter that you draft to a coach. And finally, I always think it's a good idea to give them some sort of an action item. Now, that doesn't always work, not always, but oftentimes if you give the coach an action item, that gives them the ability to write back. So let me know if you'd like to schedule a call. Let me know if you need any other materials. Let me know what next steps can be, and things like that. Or I look forward to checking back in with you next week or in a month, or I will follow up with you after such and such tournament. So it's really a good idea to make sure that you put in some sort of an action or follow up item moving forward. Okay, the other aspect of this is just anytime you're writing to a college, to a coach, proofread your emails, make sure that everything is articulated the way you want it to be. You're presenting yourself, you're showing that you're college ready, you are letting them know you're not just firing off emails very quickly, that you are taking your due diligence and your time to write an effective email. So personalize it. Don't go into a full novel on everything. Try to get to the point, even with the highlights that I gave you. Add that video and any other supporting details in the closing or as an addendum or as an attachment, and make that email really count to that coach. And just know you may have to email that coach several times before you even get an answer. All right, so I like to very much take advantage of social media in the athletic recruiting process. And let's talk about why and how that can be really helpful. So, right, you're building your brand. So, how can athletes use social media to build your brand, right? So, you can put together on some social media channel, website, showcasing your achievements, your training, your game highlights, engaging with coaches and teams and professional programs. And here's what I like to see. If you're an athlete, don't mix it in with your personal. Say you have an Instagram account, don't mix it in with your personal. Create your own dedicated athletic social media posts and postings, particularly if you've gone to a showcase camp or those ID camps or a tournament where you've had contact with a coach and you've had a great conversation with them, or there's some follow-up, and or you've gone to some sort of training which has been very valuable to you, or you've just earned some sort of athletic recognition. Post those things, or post a shout out. Thank you to Coach LaFemina at XYZ College for hosting me, and for all the insights I gained on, or for helping me with my golf stroke, or things like that, where you're giving a shout out or a thank you or letting people know. Even when athletes get offers, they post the non-committed offers, but the verbal offers. Just got an offer, and sometimes that energy promotes other offers to come in. So social media can be a great way. Just make sure that you're keeping it very much to the recruiting process, and it's not intertwining or sort of getting in the way of anything that you're doing socially with your friends or family. Make sure you're posting that game footage, those positive interactions. You don't want to have that as being a forum for any negativity, inappropriate language, something controversial. I mean, this is something that you're using in helping to attract a coach or to highlight who you are. So you want to be very cognizant of how you're presenting yourself. And I would say that's really good advice anyway, just for someone going through the college admissions process. All right. So oftentimes students ask me, how do I find out who the coach is? So, 99% times, and this is always a little bit hard to navigate. So I do say exercise your patience sometimes in navigating a college website. Sometimes it's very pleasant and very doable. Sometimes we have to do a lot more clicking and searching to get to where we need to go. But typically you can see the go to the college that you're interested in. In this template, I'm using Villanova. And so for Villanova, I have searched, I've gone into the website, and I can actually go and look at their women's soccer page, saying if I'm interested in that. I can learn about their schedule, their stats, their roster, their recruits. Oftentimes the head coaches and assistant coaches names are there with their contact information. So I always say start there. So search for the college's athletic website by typing the college name, such as I did, Villanova Athletics. And then eventually you land to where you need to go, to that dedicated athletic section. And that should include the information for all sports teams. And then you want to look for links or sections that mention recruiting, prospective athletes, get recruited. And so oftentimes a college will have a recruiting page where they'll share information about how they go about the recruiting process. And or they may have a recruiting questionnaire. So if there's a college that you're very much excited about, I always recommend that my athletes go to the website of the colleges that they're seeking and fill out the recruiting questionnaire. Now, this should not be done just solely, but I think that's a great start. And oftentimes in communications with coaches, they will say to you, go back, make sure you filled out our recruiting questionnaire, or do this or do that within our website. So it's nice to even say in your email, I have completed your questionnaire, I have done X, Y, and Z, so I'm all set, right? That's a great thing. Now, also, colleges can share some of those camps. If you've heard me talk just in those last few slides, I've talked about ID camps or things like that. So in going to the Florida Southern women's soccer page, I found that they had an ID camp coming up. And so that was exciting. And I know that I could go in and I could register. So this is a great opportunity, as I've talked about on several times throughout the presentation. Great way to showcase your skills, networking opportunities, learn and have exposure to varying coaching styles, see what the competition looks like, learn more about college recruiting rules, get some skill evaluation. So I can't say enough about the value of some of these opportunities and things to look out for, particularly if you're really excited about one college, more so than others. Now, if you recall, in part of letter writing, I talked a little bit about the college recruiting resume, add your resume, attach your resume. And so a resume is not completely an abstract concept in the college admissions arena, because we work with students in helping them draft their high school resume, which is a listing of all the things that they've done and experiences they've had throughout their high school career. So this would be really following the same suit, but it's a little bit different. So it can be a first impression for coaches. It can be that visual and nice listing of your accolades, of your awards. It can give them your academic achievements. You can put on your profile, your accomplishments, again, the details, the coach references. So by having this already, this can actually shorten your email to the coach, and you can say, see my resume, which is attached. And you would want to have, again, that ID number on that, and anything else that highlights who you are as both an athlete and an academic prospect. And you can even mention your major or things that you are interested in studying on your resume. Now, here's kind of a sample at the very minimal, so a sample athletic resume template. So again, this just sort of showcases to you in a visual from me just telling you, but showing you the contact information, the awards, the academics, future plans, athletic background, adding coaches, sharing goals. These are all things that you can and should include on your athletic resume. Now, especially with an athlete's resume, a lot of times athletes really like to add the visuals or the pictures. And so I'm always all about that. If you want to add yourself getting an award, that incredible action shot, that save that you had, that swing, you standing with the big, tournament cup, standing there with all these medals around you, showing the time board for swimming. These are great things that athletes like to do. So there's always a lot of pictures, and I encourage my athletes to use things like, I think these are minimal examples, simplistic examples, but maybe Canva or other types of resume formats that are can add a lot more visuals, or you can do a little bit more with, are great for athletes. Sometimes athletes on this picture or this sample on the right, they have their shot or their play or their pictures in the background, and then their resume material is in the forefront. So there's lots of ways for you to get creative and kind of show off on that visual part as well when you're creating a resume. Okay. Let's talk about, when do we get started with all this, right? Because I've gone through so much with you already, but how do we know when we should get started? All right. So certainly, first and foremost, your research is, and right. So what am I starting with? The common mistakes to avoid before I start taking you through this process, so you understand why it's important to start as early as ninth grade. But the lack of research. It's really important to do your due diligence and your research in teams, in programs, in finding the right fit, what the coaches are like. I think the teams, because you really want to have that full, sort of collegiate experience, knowing you can study what you want to study, that you can walk out with a degree and move forward in your career, but also that the team you're with, the coach you're with, the school you're at really is the right place for you to be. You don't want to just choose something based on the sports alone. You really want to make sure that your quest for playing at the collegiate, level is really aligned with what you want to do academically, and what kinds of experiences you want to have throughout your time at college. And I cannot impart to you enough how it's so important to start as early, even as I said, as a ninth grader, starting that recruiting profile and getting yourself ready, right? Exploring the sport that you want to get involved in, starting your training and development of that, making sure that you have a strong academic focus, and that networking and researching all can be things that you could be starting in your freshman year. And again, as you move forward, attending those camps and showcases, right? Because you've started to go into those websites and looked for that information, creating that athletic profile through one of those associations, and working on those, improving your stats, achievements, and accolades, and starting at the very earliest that you can, reaching out to coaches and learning about programs. And before I go into 11th grade, I thought this would be a good time to start talking about one of the most important parts of the athletic recruiting process, is getting your athletic highlight reel together. And your athletic video matters, significantly. So you really want to make sure that yours is a well-made reel You want to make sure that it showcases your skills, your athleticism, and how well you know that game and that sport in a really short and engaging video. I always say don't do anything where it's practice. Really, they want to see game or what right when you're in the middle of your sport, a tournament, a competition, whatever it is, those make for the best video reels. And you want to have a little bit sort of, if you follow this structure, you have a brief introduction. Grab the coach's attention immediately, your best play, some action item, something that was really unique and exciting. And then you can then go in for the next 2 minutes or so, displaying your versatility. And finally, do put in as an ending slide or piece narrative, information on how they can contact you, things like that. So this is all really part of the elements that go into a really great highlight video. And remember I talked about social media. So uploading it to YouTube or Huddle is an athletic, into your portals. Send the coaches your videos. Keep them updated, right? You don't want to have something from 2 years ago. Post it on your social media. And always include that link on your resume or in your emails so that a coach can easily just get that little 2 to 3 minute window of watching you play, which is so significant. Okay, and then back to junior year where you're starting to have done all the research. Now you're starting to narrow your choices. You're refining your skills. You're keeping up with your academics. You're still testing, right? Because this is still important. You're visiting college campuses, whether you have an official or not. Maybe you're able to just unofficially reach out to a coach or staff or members of team to inquire, to learn more. These are all super great things you can be doing during your junior year. And then getting into your senior year, you're going to be finalizing your applications because remember, even though we've talked about all these pieces and parts of athletic recruiting, at the end of the day, you do still have to submit a college application. It can be very much the standard application that everybody else is who is not looking to be a recruited athlete. So you're going to be still falling into most of that from many colleges. Now, on an occasion, a college may have a unique and specific application for their athletes, or you may be working a little bit more with their compliance people over the admissions, but in any way, shape, or form, you are still submitting some kind of an application for review for the college portion. So I think it's important by your senior year, you kind of have gone through these recruiting milestones, all the way up to getting to number 3, where you're starting to hopefully get some verbal offers, which is a non-binding offer from a coach. And then all the way through into your senior year with those official offers and commitments, leading to a signing of a national letter of intent or committing verbally. Now, when you receive that offer, sort of just kind of backtracking to that, make sure that you're always evaluating any offer. Consider the academics, the athletic fit. Is the scholarship or the financial part something doable for your family? What is that going to look like? What is the team culture? So you really want to make sure that you're really looking at the right fit for you. And hopefully you get multiple offers and you can compare those offers, but don't feel like so much pressure. You can take your time, but also know that when you do decline, there are lots of students ready to take those spots, and coaches have multiple lists raring to go. So if you get a verbal commitment, you are to follow up with a formal acceptance. You should stay in touch with the coach and complete any required paperwork that you need to. If you're negotiating or if there's things that are still on the table, make sure that you're always very respectful, that you're asking questions in a polite way, you're being mindful of the coach. I think every communication really matters. So I think it's important for you, if you have any questions, to reach out, be clear, but be appreciative. And then if you do feel like you need to decline, you should let the coach know immediately. Thank the coach and politely decline. You never know. Coaches do move from colleges to college. So you want to keep the doors open. You want to keep opportunities open. You want to maintain yourself in the best light. But I think when you know that you're ready to decline an offer, you should let the coach know so that they can move on. Now, part of in that D1 and D2, you may be offered an official college athletic visit. And so this can come up very quickly. Sometimes a coach will say, we want you to officially visit. And sometimes those official visits are even paid for. Your coach may give you an agenda a day or two in advance, and it'll give you the opportunity to learn all about the college, the team, the coach, the sport, the campus fit, everything about it. So you can really learn about what's happening with that sport, what the expectations are of you, and whether or not you think this is the right fit or not for you. So that's always a great sign. And I think I just wanted to circle back a little bit, just also on from the official offers and things like that, remembering that you do have to be a college, applicant. And it is not uncommon, particularly when you and a coach know that you have a 100% match and you're both very excited about each other. If the college offers an early decision, which is a legal and binding agreement, or a restrictive early action agreement, or even early action, the coach will definitely want to encourage you to go for one of these three early, because it just gives you the absolute earliest sort of what's the word that I want to use, but the earliest in knowing that this is a done deal. And so you've gone through the admissions part and you've gone through the coach, and you are good and ready to go. But sometimes there can be some cons to doing this early decision, because that is legal and binding, or these earliers, because if there are still some uncertainties about this, then you may not want to go that route in the college admissions part. And so I think it's really important for you to weigh out the pros and cons. We always, as college advisors, always encourage our students to go for the earliest deadlines. But if a coach does encourage you to do something that you're not completely sure of, you do want to have that conversation, and you want to be completely certain that all of the conversations have been mapped out before you make, particularly any kind of an ED, that binding early decision agreement. Okay, you may have heard the term walk-ons. So there are, oftentimes a coach may say, I'm really excited about you. You're coming to this college. However, I've already recruited all the athletes. We already have solidified our roster, but you may have the opportunity to be a walk-on athlete. So that situation is a little bit different in that you're not officially recruited. You don't have those committed scholarships. Maybe you did have a scholarship academically, but you don't have it athletically. You can be asked to join the team, but you may have to attend a tryout. show your sport, show your performance level. You may have to prove your commitment. So it's a whole nother arena that's not in official recruitment. But I have had many athletes who knew that they were going to have walk-on opportunities. And this has been a great opportunity for them. And they're playing and they're very happy. So I think that if, a walk-on becomes a possibility, you should, and you're excited about that, then you should absolutely consider that. Now, today, February 5th, was National Signing Day for many high school athletes. They do sometimes have an early signing day in December, but hopefully you get to this point where you are part of the high school senior crowd who is formally signing, where you're officially committing to a chosen program. You're getting recognitions for that. Lots of congratulations, and you did it. And that's just fabulous, right? And, once you get beyond that signing day, you want to make sure that there's no dip in your academics. You're continuing to academically be successful and getting ready for college. You want to continue with your athletic training, keeping in physical condition. And sometimes coaches even send their future athletes or recruits, a physical conditioning schedule, things that they want you to do to get ready for the season, and begin that emotional readiness and transition, because it can be a very big transition. Responsibility and pressure can be there for being a student athlete. So it's really good to do everything you possibly can early on to prepare for that transition. Anything that you do in the recruiting process is going to be a team effort. And so where I don't have something here talking about the coaches, you obviously want to bring your high school coaches in the fold, or anyone you're training with, or your club coaches, competitive coaches in that. But I think at the end of the day, there really is the student role, and your role as a student athlete is really the thing that you really want to be focusing on. And it's not about just registering and playing really well. There are things you really need to do to help yourself to get to the level of where you want to be. And that's everywhere from your performance to having that profile, communicating with the coaches, meeting those requirements, being proactive, working through the emotionality and mental well-being of balancing academics and athletics, understanding the recruiting timeline and starting early. Social media and exposure, all the things that I've talked about, the resume, the camps, the emails, things like that. And then obviously athletes need to be really committed, and they need to constantly have the resilience to get back up and keep going, because athletic recruitment can be challenging. And sometimes it can take time to get an offer. And sometimes you may not land exactly where you want to land. So you need to have the resilience and fortitude to make that decision and to stick with it. And parents, certainly, we don't want you to take over everything in this. We want the students to be the guiding force in all of this, but we definitely need you in all of this, encouraging the independence, helping with the research, having that strong conversation about financial planning, what scholarships, what the value has to be, what the money has to be for them to attend a particular college, helping with the communication with coaches, and being there and helping them with drafting those emails, but not writing to the coaches yourself. Providing the strength and support for an athlete, high school athlete, to have that resilience and have that growth. And then helping them with planning those visits, or making yourself available to go on those visits, to go to those showcase camps. And then, finally making that final decision-making process. So that leads me to the end of this webinar on athletic recruitment. I think we covered a lot, and I think there was a lot to sort of get through on just how do we talk about athletic recruitment in a very short period of time. As you can see, there's lots of things to think about. I certainly thank you for attending the webinar. If there's anything that me or anyone at JRA can help or guide you with, please feel free to contact us, to call us at hello@jraec.com. We are a dedicated team of educational consultants specializing in a multitude of areas, and we'd love to work with you. And we have future webinars coming up. And in fact, our next webinar will be in early March. And actually, I will be at the helm of that one. And I will be talking about coursework and the importance of selecting certain courses or knowing what courses can help you in college admissions and getting scholarships, aligning you with the major that you may want to pursue, finding the hidden requirements or things that colleges are looking for or seeking in applicants and the coursework that they have. So all of this is an important element in that. And at this time, I am going to stop and look to see if we have any questions. Okay. So let's see. Okay, so yes, this video is being recorded and you will have the opportunity. We will send that to you. So everything in this will be available to you in the future. So absolutely. Are there any other questions? All right. Well, thank you, everyone. Good night and best of luck with your athletic recruiting process.